forgive me for this trap shit. Sergeant Smack making backflip. Telly Hank did with the action. With the Vato speaking Spanish. Frank Matthews, how I vanish. Poof. Came back like I'm King Tut. Gold BBS is on a beamer. When Fat Cat was 10 queens up. Ball off the profit, not the re-up. Fly like Puerto Rican Jesus. Uptown like I'm Baby Maine. Just caught a touchdown from the Bay.
Lord, protect me from my friends, because I can handle my enemies.
Focus live on 5, and this gang is called Heartless Felons.
That's right, Chris, and they are dangerous. Members are known to kill, rob, and steal, and they're on the streets of Northeast Ohio.
Deputy Coyne, CPD has been advised they have units en route in a moment. And we're also getting reports that they're breaking out the windows, so they may be armed with glass.
Deputy Coyne, 701.
Go ahead.
Do we have CPD en route yet, or on scene?
We have them en route. As of my last phone call, they had at least one zone car en route.
Been breaking windows out there. We're going to have to go in and take down one at a time. We got them all laid out in their stomachs now.
Copy.
I got 2 devs holding the pod that's in question. I got another dev sitting on a gym full of kids.
Copy that.
I'm going to make my way back to the main entrance to meet the oncoming units so that we can safely make entry into this pod. I got glass broken everywhere, and they're using chairs. Again, right now everyone's laid out on their stomachs on the floor that we can see. There's pods or rooms in the pod that we can't see.
Copy, 1925.
Breaking windows.
They were going to work on that window for a while.
Tearing off signs. Pure destruction by teenagers in a juvenile detention.
If we take this little one and that other guy without the shirt, those are the 2 ones that are riling everybody up.
Initially, when deputies responded to the incident, there weren't enough of them to keep the situation under control. So they watched as the center was torn apart, flipped upside down.
Just record it all.
But when SWAT showed up, you can see they went to work, sawing a hole in the glass, ultimately to communicate with the kids.
If you make any aggressive maneuver, you will be hit with an impact munition.
There wasn't much talking after that, just orders given by authorities.
Lay down on your bellies, put your hands behind your heads.
Before they moved in.
On your belly!
Guys, there's a mattress.
Lay on your bellies.
Looks like 2 of those great chairs, 3 of those great chairs here. And something blue right here blocking the door. 2107, entry into the ER room.
One by one, you can see them take out the kids suspected of causing $200,000 worth of damage, but some of them still put up a fight.
I couldn't breathe.
Again, find the defendant guilty of that count. Also find the defendant guilty of both firearm specifications in that matter.
The roots of that chaos stretches back decades, but to understand it, you only have to step inside of a courtroom on a humid July morning in 2015. Inside Cleveland's Justice Center, Judge Michael Astrab sat at his bench when a plain white envelope appeared amongst motions and filings stacked before him. It wasn't a motion to dismiss. It wasn't a request to delay the case. Inside was a threat, a message written by a man already buried deep in the system, serving life, but still reaching through concrete and steel to make his presence felt. The timing wasn't a coincidence. The letter landed in the middle of a high-profile murder trial that had the entire city watching. And what Judge Astrab didn't know at that moment was that letter came from the kingdom ruled by the gang of the very man standing trial before him.
Surprising new information tonight in the high-profile murder trial of a gang leader in Cleveland. The verdict came in today, and tonight we learned the judge faced death threats as he oversaw the trial.
McIntyre, good morning. Thanks so much for joining us. You might have heard here on IdeaStream last week or seen on our WVIZ show Ideas a story about the Heartless Felons, a notoriously violent street gang based predominantly in Cleveland and in juvenile and adult prisons. In addition to their prominence on the streets and behind bars, they're big on social media. Seriously, you can find them on YouTube and Instagram. One Heartless Felon rapper has a Facebook page. The social media aspect isn't the only thing that distinguishes today's violent gangs from those of previous generations. Even those who grew up in that life say the Heartless Felons are different, more heartless.
Steph, thanks. Meanwhile, there's a new warning tonight about one particularly violent gang spreading throughout Northeast Ohio. News Channel 5's Kristen Vogt joins us. And Kristen, this gang actually started in prison?
Chris, they not only started in prison, but the Heartless Felons existed only within Ohio prisons. But a new trend is emerging. Once these members get out of prison, they're continuing to operate and commit major crimes throughout Akron, Canton, and the Cleveland area.
We know if someone's a heartless felon, they're probably going to have a weapon on them, or they're going to be carrying a weapon most of the time.
Plus, members are known to kill, rob, and steal.
They're wreaking fear and havoc within the communities, and that's how the heartless felons work.
The Heartless Felons are one of our most destructive groups. They're known traveling in large numbers.
DJ Norris of the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Correction says the Heartless Felons started in a Marion, Ohio prison about 10 years ago. Now it's a predominantly Cleveland-based gang.
You know what separates Cleveland from the rest of Ohio? It's not the skyline or sports. It's who calls it home. Nearly half of the city's population is African American. In a state where that number barely breaks 13%. Drive an hour in certain directions and you'll see exactly why. Medina County has only 2% of black residents, while Knox County is barely over 2%. And then you got Holmes with less than 1%. Even the cities people think of when they picture urban Ohio, Columbus, Cincinnati, Akron, they only come close. Like Cincinnati, where nearly 40% of the residents are black, followed by Akron with 32%, and then Columbus with right around 29% black people. And this is where the city of Cleveland stands alone, the only city in Ohio where you're more likely to see a black face walking down the street than any other. The Cuyahoga River cuts the city clean in half. East of that line, where generations stayed after factories closed and the red lines never faded, places like Glenville, Hyo, Mount Pleasant, Union Miles, neighborhoods that were left to figure it out when the city moved on. Abandoned homes, corner stores, and metal gates. And a generation of young men who watched survival become an everyday skill. Cleveland doesn't really move like the rest of Ohio, but some would say it carries too much memory, too much pride to pretend that it ever could. And for some, those same streets that raised them will become the blueprint for something bigger, something that would begin inside the walls of a juvenile prison.
This surveillance video shows the violence that had become all too common inside the Cuyahoga County Juvenile Detention Center. Here, a group of juveniles are seen ganging up and attacking another.
We are not about to permit a group of thugs to run this detention center.
Thursday morning, Cuyahoga County prosecutors announced a 437-count complaint against 43 members of a gang called the Heartless Felons. All are in custody. They say the group is responsible for much of the violence inside the detention center. Many are locked up for crimes ranging from aggravated robbery to aggravated murder. This map shows they come from all over the area.
But this tiny minority cannot be allowed to rob, beat, vandalize, threaten, intimidate everyone else here.
Prosecutors released some video of violent acts that occurred between February 2012 and May 31st of this year. This video shows water flooding one of the units after someone destroyed the sprinkler system. Another shows a juvenile sucker punching a corrections officer. And here's yet another incident where a gang of teens attacked another juvenile, creating a huge melee.
We uncovered a system in which new members rose to the ranks by carrying out violent attacks on the residents and adult staff.
Investigators say the Heartless Felons had a defined command structure, common symbols and tattoos. They had a list of 10 golden rules, such as no snitching, no lying, cheating, or stealing from a fellow member, and no engaging in homosexual activity. The prosecutors said they used violence and intimidation to recruit other members inside the facility, forcing them to give up food or medication to avoid a beating. Under the crackdown, the more dangerous and older offenders will be moved to the county jail.
It's time to get the Heartless Felons out of the detention center.
They did make it out of the juvenile detention center and into the adult system and onto the streets, where they would go on to become a force. But the blueprint wasn't written on corners. It was allegedly drafted inside Ohio's youth lockups in the early 2000s, Cuyahoga Hills and Indian River, where alliances turned into ranks and ranks turned into orders. And based on my earliest research of the gang, it would be a teenager from Longwood Avenue that would start pulling gravity by the name of Antonio L.A. Pone Peterson. In later court testimony, he would be later called the Godfather and the one who would build the ladder. HNICs, generals, bosses, underbosses, and godsons, each responsible for money, discipline, and enforcement. 2007 would put Peterson in adult court on the aggravated robbery plea, but the structure he would help design wouldn't stop with him. It was spread. And Howard Howie T. Lawrence would stand close to that origin story. His dice game robbery that spiraled into the death of a D'Angelo Chandler would be an extension into the origins of the gang. The verdict would be aggravated robbery and felonious assault, and the judge would stack the time to 21 years. Security inside the courtroom would go into lockdown levels, with every spectator photographed, IDs checked, metal detectors reset. After word spread that the Heartless Felons planned to fill the gallery and stare down witnesses, with one spectator even said to attempt to photograph jurors. But that would only show the beginning of the power that this group would yield. And by 2014, prosecutors would draw the line in paper: 43 juveniles, 437 counts, aggravated riot, assault, kidnapping, a first series of indictments that would try to map a prison-born order into the city that raised it. And their rules read more like commandments: follow the chain, obey orders, protect members' families, no stealing from brothers, no betrayal. Every violation brought consequences, and every new recruit learned that what began behind bars would soon reach the street. The code intact, the loyalty unbroken, and that pattern would repeat itself everywhere its name would surface, in the chow halls, in the courtrooms, and on the corners in Cleveland. From one name connected to the group to the next: Antonio L.A. Pone Peterson, Howard Howie T. Lawrence, Dante Iceberg Ferg Ferguson, Christopher Conkle, Demetrius Bolden, Louis Yellow Nitschke, until finally the circle closed with Julius Hook Webster, the one whose trial would bring the story back to where it began: a judge, a threat, and the reach of a gang that was born behind bars.
The county prosecutor is cracking down on one of the most violent gangs in the state, a gang that once only existed in prisons. Kristen Volk is live on 5, and this gang is called Heartless Felons.
That's right, Chris, and they are dangerous. Members are known to kill, rob, and steal, and they're on the streets of Northeast Ohio. Today, one of the founding members of the group was arraigned in court along with 2 of his accomplices.
Julius Webster.
28-year-old Julius Webster walked into a Cuyahoga County courtroom today flanked by extra sheriff's deputies. He showed no emotion and spoke very softly.
Mr. Webster, were you present and hearing what I had to advise in terms of constitutional rights when the arraignment procedure began?
Webster is, according to prosecutors, one of the most notorious members of the Heartless Felons gang in our area. He's accused of murdering another man last year near a bar at East 70th and Superior. The Cuyahoga County prosecutor says this man, Robert Porter, helped Webster carry out the murder. Porter was arraigned in court yesterday. Webster's girlfriend is also believed to be involved.
Consider Ms. Golston to be a threat to the safety of citizens of Cuyahoga County.
Lakia Golston was arraigned in court this afternoon. The prosecutor says Golston hid Webster after the murder and threatened witnesses to his crimes. He also says Golston is a high-ranking Heartless Felon member.
We know if someone's a Heartless Felon, they're probably going to have a weapon on them, or they're going to be carrying a weapon most of the time.
4 months ago, we first told you about the Heartless Felons gang. Back then, the U.S. Marshals told us they were concerned about the rise of the dangerous group in Northeast Ohio.
They're wreaking fear and havoc within the communities, and that's how the Heartless Felons work.
The man known as the leader of the Heartless Felons learns how much time he'll spend behind bars. Julius Webster was sentenced today. News Channel 5's Mike Brookbank is in our newsroom with new developments from court.
This afternoon, a Cuyahoga County judge sentenced Julius Webster to life in prison without the possibility of parole for 99 years. Last month, the jury convicted Webster of murdering Curtis Marks outside a Cleveland bar back in August 2013. The 29-year-old has been in and out of prison for the past decade and was convicted in a separate case for his leadership role in the Heartless Felons gang. Before being sentenced, Curtis Marks' family had a chance to address the court and the man responsible for killing their loved one. The judge had some words for Webster as well after handing down the sentence, saying Webster needs to be removed from society.
And appears to be of the position that he, along with other members of the Heartless Felons, are above the law, or that the law for some reason does not apply to him or to them.
When asked if he wanted to talk, Webster simply said, "I'm fine." Webster's lawyers have asked for a new trial, claiming the extra security tainted the jury's view of him.
The murder trial for this man, Julius Webster, is underway. He's accused of being a ringleader in the Heartless Felons street gang. MOBB, you've been in court all day where security measures taken in this case are unprecedented.
That's right, Lee. From SWAT teams to a very heavy presence from sheriff's deputies to a ban on cell phones. The judge in this case not taking any chances that anything in this trial will be compromised. A full gallery inside courtroom 21C today for the start of Julius Webster's murder trial. Most of the people, friends and family of Curtis Marks Jr., who was shot and killed on August 29, 2013. 28-year-old Webster is charged with aggravated murder and robbery in Marks' death, plus faces additional charges of kidnapping, theft, escape, and intimidation related to other crimes. The trial began with a jury view, taking the 12 jurors and 2 alternates out to 2 of the crime scenes. This one, Fly High nightclub near 70th and Superior, is where prosecutors say Webster robbed and killed Marks.
He said, "I'm going to count to 3. He counted to 3. He shot him anyway.
Webster wanted to go along to the site, prompting unprecedented security measures. A dozen SWAT officers in an armored car guarding jurors and Webster, who never left the vehicle. Inside the courtroom, more heightened security, with sheriff's deputies in bulletproof vests, extra metal detectors, and a ban on cell phones. Prosecutors say Webster is one of the leaders of the Heartless Felons, a street gang with statewide ties. The defense saying otherwise.
He's not charged with being a gang member. He's not charged with anything other than what you had read to you by Mr. Filiatro. And those charges cannot be proven beyond a reasonable doubt.
By 2015, the name Heartless Felons wasn't just talked about in Cleveland's cell blocks and on the streets. It was echoing across the country. The nightly news would call them one of Ohio's most violent and organized street gangs. And soon, their reach would make it to national television. When the first 48 would come to town, producers probably thought they were following just another homicide. But what they would find instead was a window into a criminal organization built behind bars and run with military precision. And in the crosshairs of the bullseye was Julius Hook Webster, one of the most recognizable faces of the group. To law enforcement, he was part recruiter, part enforcer, and at trial, he would be labeled as the leader of the group. He wasn't there when the Heartless Felons were first named inside Ohio's youth prisons, but he was the generation that would carry their code from the cell blocks to the city blocks. And this made him one of the first public-facing members, a man who represented the gang's presence outside of prison walls while operating under the same hierarchy its founders established. His name had already been known inside of Cuyahoga County's courtrooms, but this specific case would be different. It would be for the 2013 murder of a man by the name of Curtis Marks Jr., who was gunned down on Cleveland's east side, a murder that prosecutors would say was meant to send a message. Over 3 weeks of testimony and courtroom filled with SWAT officers, a guarded jury, and witnesses who spoke in half whispers, Julius Webster was convicted of murder, aggravated robbery, and gang-related charges, each count somehow reinforcing that the gang's order reached far beyond the prison walls where it was born. Presiding over that case was Judge Michael Astrab, the same man who months earlier had opened a plain white envelope containing a threat from within that same network. Now, the figure behind the name stood before him, shackled at the wrists and ankles, staring straight ahead as Astrab read the sentence. Life in prison, parole possible only after 99 years. And to the Ohio judicial system, it was more than a verdict. It was the moment that the state met its match and finally tried to strike back. That trial will pull the mask off of what had long been whispered in Cleveland, that a gang born in juvenile lockups had grown into a force strong enough to challenge the streets, the system, and the state itself. From Cleveland to Canton, the influence ran wide, a network stitched together by loyalty, violence, and a creed that never changed. For the state, Webster's conviction marked the point where the gang's power finally met its reckoning. And for Judge Astrab, it also closed the circle from that same message that arrived folded in the envelope had now returned in the form of a man who embodied the very kingdom that first sent it.